William Morrow and HarperAudio present God Spare the Girls, a novel by Kelsey Mckinney, performed by Catherine Tabor. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Genesis 19:8, NIV. 1. For that whole brutal year, Caroline Nolan had begged God to make her life interesting. He sent a plague instead. Grasshoppers emerged from the earth in late June, crawling across the dry grass, multiplying too quickly, staying long past their welcome. Now they carpeted the land she'd inherited with her sister, vibrated in the sun like a mirage. As Caroline drove the ranch's half-mile driveway, she rolled over hundreds of them. She threw the car in park, stepped out into the yellowed grass beside the gravel drive, and crushed their leggy, squirming bodies beneath her sensible heels. It was Saturday, the morning of her sister Abigail's bridal shower. They had spent weeks readying the drab, cluttered ranch house for the event. Caroline climbed the creaking wooden porch steps, paled by decades of harsh sun, and ran a hand over the garland of pink paper flowers they'd wrapped around the railing. Abigail had wanted them draped just so, carefully inspecting every detail. Caroline bent to plug in the white twinkle lights that their mother, Ruthie, had insisted were tacky. That is, until she'd seen them suspended over the door. According to their mother, this was going to be the best shower Hope, Texas, had ever seen. Caroline inserted her key into the chipped brass lock. As usual, it refused to turn for her. She jiggled the key until it gave way, and pushed so hard the door banged open, almost dropping the framed engagement photos she'd been warned a half-dozen times not to break. She wiped the sweat from her forehead, careful not to smear her foundation, and stepped into the frigid, air-conditioned entryway. She set the stack of photos on the table. An hour earlier, Ruthie had pulled Caroline out of Abigail's room while they waited for her sister to finish primping, and begged her to rush over here before their guests arrived. Her mother's bracelet was supposed to be a surprise shower gift for Abigail, Ruthie said, and no one had remembered to retrieve it from the ranch. Caroline had rolled her eyes at her mother's urgency, but she'd sped the whole way over. Now she hurried past the gold-framed family photos that hung in the dim hallway, smacking her elbow on the wall as she turned. She didn't remember the hall being this narrow, barely wide enough for her to walk down it with her elbows untucked. Lately, it felt like the whole world around her was shrinking, when she wanted it to grow with her. Caroline sucked in her stomach, shifted her 2 wide hips, and squeezed between the dozens of chairs they'd arranged in semicircular rows like an amphitheater in the living room. She lingered at the door to her grandmother's bedroom. It had been 2 years since Nanny's death, and even though the high grass, wavering cedar trees, and cattle gates, basically everything below this huge swath of blue sky, now belonged to her and Abigail, entering Nanny's room still felt like trespassing. Nanny had willed the ranch to the 2 of them, skipped over her own daughters. She'd explained the decision in her will. She said that Caroline and Abigail were the ones who loved it, the only ones who would keep it safe. But Caroline wasn't sure she wanted the responsibility anymore. She told herself that all she had to do was enter the room, unlock the bedside table drawer where Nanny had always hidden her jewelry, and pray the bracelet was there. "Think how happy Abby will be," Ruthie had said. Caroline gripped the knob, twisted, and swung open the door. A room left alone defines its kingdom. Dust settles across surfaces, like a morning dew that never burns off. Caroline took a deep breath and stepped down.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?